Sounds like Big Ben in the background. Jesus, love.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured all that chiming would give us time to delay the start. So.
And I will have to apologize that in order to start the council meeting on time, this meeting will have to end slightly early due to some snafu with scheduling and sending out of links without including IT in the planning. So apologize for that oversight.
What time, Kevin?
It gives us 5 minutes to get council started and we'll have it up and running.
Okay. Yeah, it said there was another meeting in progress when I tried the link that was in my calendar.
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, the Parks and Public Works link was sent out, which conflicts with the council meeting at 7. And so instead of just using the council meeting as the roundtable and then proceed right into council, we're gonna have to switch midway.
Okay, so I can go back and use the link on my calendar after this is done, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Looks like Bob Sturbank's in the attendees, Mark Carrera. Oh, he's been parked there for a while. Kevin, if we could pull those folks over, that'd be great.
Mark, you're going to have to log out and use the link I just sent you in order to get in.
Councilor Mayhew, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just, and maybe I should wait till Sturbank's on, but I just want to be sure that we don't have an OPMA problem here. If we've, so the question is, what have we publicly noticed? And I'm worried that if we publicly noticed a different way to attend than what we're using, I'm worried about whether we might get ourselves into trouble here.
Councilmember Mayhew, if I may answer. The public notification was this meeting for the roundtable, and the council meeting is still under the council meeting link, and both were communicated on the calendar as the correct meetings to join.
So that's what we published in the paper?
Yes, sir.
We've published this link.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
We published 2 links, one for one meeting and a different link for the other meeting.
The council meeting is a standing meeting, and that was communicated as the council meeting. This was something that was communicated as the Parks and Public Works meeting link. I apologize for that.
Which I assume is precisely why we have to use this link for this meeting, because that's what was published to Councilor.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, I believe we have a quorum. Yes, we do. So with that, I will call the Snoqualmie City Roundtable meeting to order and ask the city clerk, the interim city clerk, to please take the roll call.
Councilmember Jeans.
Here.
Councilmember Ross.
Here.
Councilmember Holloway.
Here.
Councilmember Mayhew.
Here.
Councilmember Lassay. I believe he's on vacation. Councilmember Sundwall.
Here.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Here.
And the mayor.
I am here, thank you. Can I ask for a motion and a second to excuse Councilor Lassay from the meeting tonight, or from the roundtable? I think he's going to be gone for the whole meeting, so.
Just point of order, Mayor, do we need to do that for a roundtable?
I'll defer to the city attorney. I believe there's minutes kept on that, so it'd probably be
It is a special meeting of the council, and so it would be appropriate if you're going to note it as an absence, or otherwise, if the council's going to have it as an excused absence. It would.
Thank you.
You bet.
So moved.
Second.
a motion and a second to excuse Councilor Lassay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. With that, I'll turn it over. Now, Council, you know, as typical protocol, we only have council members, mayor, and whatever staff are testifying with their video on, but as you can see, some consultants. This is a roundtable, and the consultants are pertaining to the reports that Jeff will talk about. So perfectly appropriate that they're joining us for the roundtable. Jeff, will go ahead and turn it over to you and to introduce the subject matter tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Folks, thank you. My name is Jeff Hamlin, one of your engineers here at the city. And tonight we are giving a presentation. The purpose of this discussion, of course, is to provide council with an overview of the general sewer plan and the water system plan, and to share with you the general findings of this work that was done. I think most of you are aware that this started back in 2018, April of 2018. I just looked up the contract today. It's been in the works for a while. And the reason being, of course, is that there's much material to cover There's a lot of coordination that has taken place, many decisions, and lots of consultation with a lot of people. So it takes a lot of work to get to this point. And I understand that the amount of work is quite a bit overwhelming. I think there was 800 or 900 pages in each of these documents. And I certainly don't expect you all to read that. That is the point of the meeting today, is to give you guys a general overview of what it is that we've been doing, why it's necessary, what it covers, and essentially the basic outcomes of this. And so RH2 is our consultant who has developed these plans. They are here tonight to kind of give this presentation an overview, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle. Before you do that, Michelle, though, I want to make certain that you folks know that we're not going to be asking you to make any decisions tonight or to weigh in, just to ask questions and listen. We'll come back later on, and we will eventually need to get some concurrence from council before we submit these to the agencies. But I just want you guys to listen and learn and ask questions and try to enjoy. Michelle.
Thanks, Jeff. Zach, do you want to go ahead and share our screen here? Thank you all for your time today and your trust in RH2 to prepare these plans, the water system plan and the general sewer plan for the city. A lot of hard work went into these plans, not just by RH2, but many of the city staff contributed hours to this effort. Jeff and others from Public Works and Parks, Community Development, Finance, city attorney, and even the mayor all contributed to this effort. And I'll say that I've worked on many planning efforts, and this is by far the most effort that one of our clients has contributed to the project. And I think it just makes this type of project and the planning that we were doing here just that much more successful. So thank you for all of that. As Jeff said, that this work started back in 2018, which meant that much of what we call existing data was only available through the calendar year 2017, 2018 for some of the sewer plans. So you'll see some references in this presentation for existing, and that's what we're calling 2017 or 2018. And then data beyond that is, for the most part, projections that we were making throughout this effort. Thank you, Zach. So I'm just going to give a quick overview on some of the overarching planning information that is general to both the water and the sewer plan. And then Zach is going to move on to give some highlights of the water system plan and those analyses. And then Kenny will do the same for the general sewer plan. So feel free to interrupt any one of us throughout the presentation with questions along the way. First of all, the planning requirements for both water and sewer system plans are defined by the Washington Administrative Code. So we are following those guidelines, as well as guidelines that are published by the Washington Department of Health and the Department of Ecology. And it's important to note that these plans do not cover the reclaimed collection system. It's just the water system and the sewer system. So both of these plans are ready for submittal. The draft plans that you have in front of you, they both go to the Department of Ecology and to King County for review and eventual approval. Now, the water system plan also is required to be submitted by the Department of Health, who is the primary review agency, as well as adjacent water systems. So as Jeff said, we're just presenting kind of the findings here today, but eventually after the plans are submitted to the review agencies and review comments are addressed, the City Council we will be asking you to adopt the plans and formally approve them. So next slide. So here's just the the next steps here for the water system plan. So this is the approval timeline. So here, once we get the green light, we'll go ahead and submit the water system plan to review agencies as a draft. Then they have 3 months to review and comment. And for the most part, there is always comments from the Department of Health and the county for water system plans. Not always do we get comments from ecology or adjacent water systems. So we'll expect those in November. And then we have another 90 days to turn around the final plan. And so that'll put us into January. And then again, the review agencies have 90 days to finalize and approve the water system plan. So that would be around March 2022. So we would anticipate coming back before you in February or March to give formal adoption of the water system plan. And then the water system plan is has a life of 10 years, and it's required to be resubmitted for approval to all those review agencies by 2032. So you want to start thinking about your next update around 2030.
Michelle, I assume the fourth bullet should read January 2022 to April 22?
Well, let's see, to April 22.
Well, it says January 2021. That's supposed to be January 20.
Sorry, thank you for catching that. Yeah, so January 2021 or 2022. I guess it depends on when we submit here in January. It is just a 90-day cycle. But yeah, thank you for catching that, Mayor.
Thank you.
And then this is the approval timeline for the general sewer plan. I see we have the, so it's August 2021, we will be submitting to those review agencies, and then another 90 days here for each of the review comment revisions. So they kind of go through the similar 90-day review and comment period. So again, Mayor, thank you for catching that. So this should say January 2022 to April 2022 is the final agency review and approval. And then there is no formal timeline for your next water system plan, or I'm sorry, sewer plan update, but we recommend it to align again with the water system plan, or possibly sooner if you have some pretty significant changes in your sewer system. Okay, so this slide and figure shows the difference between the city's water and sewer service areas. So your sewer service area generally follows the city limits and the urban growth area. Now the city limits is shown here in the green shaded area, and your urban growth area is in the red. So that's the area that the city may provide sewer service to. Now the water service area is much larger. It's the blue boundary there, and it encompasses an area just to the south of the city limits across I-90, and then all the way east out to Canyon Springs. Now the land use and growth throughout those service areas play a really big part in the analyses for the water and sewer system plans. It's mandated by the WAC that the planning is based on the city's comprehensive plan and King County's comprehensive plan. And so the growth projections that we used are required to be consistent with the city's growth planning, and for areas outside of the city for the county's growth planning. So this is what we call concurrency, and there is a checklist, and the city is required to sign off that the water system plan is concurrent with those planning agencies. We worked really closely with Mark and the community development team to ensure that we have this concurrency in the plans. This chart here just shows the land use within those two water service areas. And because the water service area serves a much larger area than the wastewater service area, it serves actually an area outside of the city limits in the UGA. And a lot of that is residential, which is why there's a larger proportion of residential land use in the water service area. Now, this chart shows a historical city population. They're on the left, and on the right, beyond 2017, 2018 is where we are showing projections for both the city limits population and employment, and then also the water system population employment and sewer system population and employment. So you'll see that the sewer tracks the city limits population pretty closely. There are some areas within the city limits that the sewer system does not provide service to, so they're on septic. And there are a few services outside of the city limits and UGA that the city does serve, but it's only a handful. Now, as you see here, the water system population exceeds the water or the city limit population by a significant amount because that service area is quite a bit larger. Now, again, these numbers are based on the city's comprehensive plan to document that required concurrency. And so the population and employment growth includes the mill site, Snoqualmie Hills, the build out of Snoqualmie Ridge, and the Meadowbrook planning area as described in the comprehensive plan. It does not include any of the previously planned Salish expansion or any proposed expansion at the casino. But I do want to note that the city does only provide sewer service to the casino and not water service.
Michelle, are you happy to take questions through? Would you rather questions be at the end of the presentation or during?
During is great.
Councilmember Jeans.
So Michelle, we're looking at the sewer system, and yet at some of the slides we call it wastewater. Is there any distinction between sewer and wastewater?
No, the terms are interchangeable here.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions before we move on? Oh,
yeah, we have little hands in
okay,
the
I'm sorry, I didn't see them.
All right, I couldn't get my mute button off. Councilmember Shepherd, go ahead.
Yeah, so I know that we had approved to get a sewer, water, and stormwater. Did we do stormwater or not?
We did, and the storm water is not required to go through this review and adoption process, the formal process that the water and sewer plans are required to go through, which is why we are presenting these to you right now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, please continue, Michelle. Oops, Councilmember Ross just went up. Councilmember Ross, go ahead.
Okay, so what you just stated, the water system population, so that takes care of our current population and anything else that is in the comprehensive plan, such as urban growth area and any other projects, except for we removed the Salish expansion because that's no longer. So that's correct, and that's water and sewer, correct?
And then there also, we are including projections in the water system for the, sorry about that. We do include in the water system projections some areas within King County that are in your water service area. So there's only a few. There isn't expected to be very much growth in the area outside the UGA.
Okay, thank you.
Hallway.
Couple of things, just to be clear. So when you're saying water system population, that is just the population of customers currently in the water system or projected. It is not a capacity.
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
Zach will be covering capacity in a few minutes here.
A few minutes. Okay. Other than that, can you talk a little bit about the sewer employment jump? in about 2032 thereabouts. What is that about?
That sewer system employment jump is the, well, it's water and sewer, and so that's the mill site employment.
Okay.
I believe that considers the phase 2 and phase 3 portions of the mill site development, if that ever happens.
That's right. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Councilmember Shepherd.
So this is going to be this is taking into consideration all the phases for the mill site, and is that going to be delineated in your water plan?
It is, the mill site is the population is shown here in the land use and population section of the plan. And then also it is reflected in the water and sewer plans in the demands chapters and the flow and loading, and then is carried forward in terms of capacity analysis in the future years.
So it's going to be delineated as far as at this point in time, this phase will cause this much impact, right?
It's not separated out for just only the mill site projections. It is in total for the full city. There was a more detailed analysis in the draft EIS work that we had done for the mill site that does that, but it's not reflected here.
Right, thank you.
And Mayhew.
Yeah, I want to make sure I understand this. Is there the chart? So I'm just kind of looking where the red line is. If I compare, I think there's a blue line at the top called water system population, and I can go way down towards the bottom. There's a sort of purpley line, I think, called water system employment. Are those two related, or what is the relationship, if any, between those two? Or are they just two separate things that we've just put on the same chart to help us know?
That's correct. Yeah, there's two separate numbers for projections.
Thank
so
you.
And we use those both of those numbers to project demands for the water system and the flow and loading for the sewer system in those analyses moving forward.
So and then maybe just, so what does it mean to, so if I'll round up, if that purple towards the bottom is currently at, well, I guess, yeah, currently at something like 4,000, what does that mean to be, the water system employment is 4,000? Because I know we have about 14,000 residents, so I don't know what that means. Can you help me understand that?
So that means that in 2017, there was almost 4,000 people employed within the water that utilize the water system for service.
So people that had jobs within that service area.
That's correct.
Got it. Thank you very much.
So employment is another way of saying retail commercial uses?
That's right. Thank you.
Councilmember Shepherd again. Michelle, how many more slides do you have? We do need to get through the presentation.
We have about 20 more slides.
How many have we gotten through so far?
We are on number 7 of 34.
Okay, so perhaps, Council, if we could keep moving through and maybe some of your questions will be answered. I mean, we'll still take questions, but let's not do 5 or 6 per slide if we can avoid it. Or we won't make it through it. It's already at 6:24. Go ahead, Michelle. So Councilmember Shepherd, if you could just hold on to your question or jot it down, write it down.
So I'm going to turn it over to Zach to talk about the detail for the water system analyses.
Okay, my name is Zach Schremp. I'm a project engineer with RH2. Just to give a brief introduction, and I will run us through the water system plan aspect of this, and then I'll turn it over to Kenny Gomez to talk about the general sewer plan. So the major components of the water system plan per the Washington Administrative Code requirements are to estimate the future water system demands for the 20-year planning period. In this case, we're looking out to year 2040. To determine the system capacity, the existing system capacity and identify necessary improvements, i.e. increases to the system capacity to meet those projected 2040 demands. To look at water quality, system policies, system design criteria, and the system's operation and maintenance program to verify that those are sufficient for the 20-year planning period. And then finally, to perform a financial analysis to demonstrate that the system will be viable and able to complete the necessary capital improvements to achieve the required system capacity by the end of the planning period. Quick overview of the water system. Our base year for this plan, as Michelle explained earlier, was 2017. Some of these numbers you've seen already in the chart that we were discussing a couple slides ago. The city population was 13,210. The water system population, again, the water service area, as I'll show on the next slide, is a little bit larger than the city limits proper. So we have a slightly larger water system population. We have those jobs that are associated with the water system, all factoring into the existing population and employment served by the water system. Total number of connections to the water system, just under 5,000. Total service area of 14.6 square miles. 3 water sources, Canyon Springs and the north and south well field. 10 pressure zones. I'll go into a little more detail about this on the next couple slides. 6 reservoirs and approximately 69 miles of water main. This slide shows the water system and plan view. The dashed blue line that bounds this figure is the retail water service area. So we can see that the geographic extents of the water system are most of the city limits and urban growth area, and then we have a significant area outside the urban growth area. We have the area toward Canyon Springs to the east of the downtown area, and then we have an area south of I-90 with limited water infrastructure at this point, but this area is within the city's retail water service area. This is a hydraulic profile, shows the water system in plan view. In profile view, wanted to go into a little more detail about some of the bullet points that I addressed on the slide a couple slides ago, and just to show the complexity of the city's water system. So there are 10 pressure zones in the water system. The goal with any water system is to maintain customer pressures between approximately 40 and 80 PSI. And just simply due to the topography of the city's water service area, we have a lot of complexity and need to provide water at a number of different hydraulic grades. So we have 10 pressure zones, 6 reservoirs, and 5 pump stations that are moving water through that distribution system. The city's sources, Canyon Springs and the north and south well field, are generally located at a lower hydraulic grade, and the city relies on these pump stations to lift water to the higher pressure zones. This chart shows the 20-year demand projections. What Michelle showed you earlier were the population projections. These are the water demand projections for the water system, based on those city and county employment projections that we showed earlier. So the green line at the top shows the system's maximum water demand, maximum day water demand, without implementation of the water use efficiency program. I'll go into that in detail on the next slide.
What is WUE?
That's the water use efficiency program. I will, on the next slide, I'll get into the details on that one. This is a plan to improve the system's efficiency, basically. So the green The green line is the projected maximum day demand of the water system without the efficiency improvements. The blue line is the projected maximum day demand with the water use efficiency improvements. And then the yellow line is just, in essence, casting the same data in a different way. This is the system demand in terms of ERUs, equivalent residential units. So effectively, this is the number of single family homes that the system can provide water to, or will need to provide water to. This is a common unit used in water system planning, but effectively this is the same data. The water use efficiency program is a state requirement. The city's required to set a water use efficiency goal and work toward it and report yearly on progress toward that goal. The city has flexibility in defining that goal. And in this case, the city has, during this planning process, we've identified a goal for the city that we think is reasonable and will improve the efficiency of the water system. In this case, what we honed in on when we were looking at the historic demand data for the city is that what we call the peaking factor between the maximum day demand of the system and the average day demand of the system is relatively high compared to other Puget Sound systems. Typically, we see the maximum day demand being approximately 1.2 to 2.5 times the average day demand in the Puget Sound area. And the city's sort of on the higher end of that. It appears to be something that could be improved upon, and it would reduce the amount of water that's needed on an instantaneous basis from the city sources during the summer. So that's the major goal of the water use efficiency program. And the second goal is to maintain the system-wide DSL, which is the distribution system leakage, at less than 6% based on a 3-year rolling average. This is a goal that goes above and beyond the state standard of 10%. The city is already well within the state guidelines on distribution system leakage, but is planning to endeavor to improve even further on that by reducing that to less than 6%. I'm going to go into a little more detail here on the system capacity analyses. I may flip a little bit back and forth between a couple of these slides as they complement each other. But one of the first things that we look at when we're doing a system capacity analysis is the capacity of the sources. So this is the physical capacity of Canyon Springs in the north and south well field to supply water to the system. So we look at our demand projections, again, that we presented on those previous slides. So we're looking at the maximum day demand. That's the metric that source capacity is compared against. So we see we are at a little under 2,600 gallons per minute presently, approaching 4,000 gallons per minute in the future. And we have a physical source capacity of about 3,260 gallons per minute. So what we're projecting here is that within 10 to 20 years, there's going to be a deficiency in the physical capability of the sources to supply the maximum day demand. This is part of the source capacity analysis. The other part of it is looking at water rights. So there are two ways that water rights are reviewed during this capacity analysis. One of them is the instantaneous water right, and the other is the annual water right. Our projection here is that the city has sufficient water rights on an annual average basis for the 20-year planning period, but is coming up short on instantaneous water rights by 2040.
What is AFY?
AFY is acre feet per year. That's a common unit that's used when discussing annual water rights. What I've done here is we've converted this into gallons per minute. This number is the same, just in different units. So that allows a comparison with the demands that we project, which are always in throughout the plan, are shown in gallons per minute. So again, these two slides, like I said, they complement each other. When you're looking at doing a source capacity analysis, the water rights are part of the picture, and the physical source capacity is also part of the picture. So the main takeaway here is just that over the 20-year planning period, the city needs to be looking at both physical improvements to the sources and additional water rights. We'll go into a little more detail about that on our capital improvement program slides. But that's the main takeaway here.
Zach, as part of the sufficiency issue, I wanted to ask about that 7% leakage issue. That suggests that for every 10 gallons we push down a pipe, we lose about a half a gallon to leakage. It seems extraordinarily high, even though it's below state standards. What accounts for it? Is that leakage in pipes, or is that somewhere in the system? Just what accounts for such leakage in general or loss?
Yeah, there's a number of components there. Physical leakage can be one, but it's not always the entire story. So calling it distribution system leakage, in a sense, can be a little bit of a misnomer. It's essentially, unaccounted for water. So when we do this analysis for a water system plan, we're doing a comparison between the total water supply to the system from the city's sources. So we know what that is, and then we know what the metered customer use is, and we also know what the city's records are on non-metered authorized water use. So that would be construction sites using a fire hydrant, fire department use, things like that the city is keeping records on. And the delta between those two numbers is what we call the distribution system leakage. So some of that is going to be physical leakage. Some of that is going to be water that's unaccounted for due to metering inaccuracy and unauthorized use and so on. You want to jump in there, Michelle?
Yeah, there's also been an operational issue with the 599 reservoir that we've been fighting for the last several years. I believe that is some of what we're seeing here as leakage is reservoir overflow. And there is a PRV and SCADA improvements that he is working on implementing in order to resolve that. So I believe that's where some of that is also going.
All right, thank you. I didn't know if it was evaporation, flushing filters, or whatever that was maybe accounted for that. So
yeah, it's the amount of water coming down from Canyon Springs and not being able to be controlled as well as he needs to be able to control it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next component of the water system analysis is a review of the storage capacity. Based on the city's emergency storage goals, some additional storage is going to need to be constructed over the course of the 20-year planning period. These projects we'll touch on again as we go into the capital improvement program, but in a nutshell, we're identifying that the city should construct about 3.6 million gallons of additional storage over the 20-year planning period. And this would involve a new reservoir in the 599 zone, which is the zone that serves the downtown area and will serve the mill site. A new reservoir in the 1040 zone, which is where these two existing tanks are up on the ridge, and then a small reservoir and or other improvements to improve or reduce the storage requirements for the southern pressure zones to the south of the downtown area. Now that we've gone through individually all of those components of the water system capacity, we want to show it to you here graphically on one slide. So this chart shows the 5 main areas that we look at for water system capacity, and then casts the demands, the existing, the 2030, and the 2040 demands as these 3 vertical lines. So we can see that our existing annual water rights are sufficient to get us all the way through the 2040 demands. Our instantaneous water rights start to come up a little bit short in 2030, and we're going to need to do something about that. Storage is an area where we need to start working on improvements rapidly. Physical source capacity, treatment capacity, again, something that needs to be looked at in the next 10 years. And then transmission, not a concern at all. So again, this is essentially reiterating what we've gone through on the previous few slides and showing it graphically in one chart. And the capital improvement program will identify the projects that we've laid out that will address these deficiencies.
Councilmember Sunwall.
Yeah, my question is, I don't know this for sure, but it feels like we have less and less water with each passing year, whether you want to call it drought conditions or whatever. We had a pretty positive winter this year, but do these projections attempt to account for fluctuations over the next 10, 20 years and what we expect water resources to yield?
Michelle, feel free to jump in here. In a nutshell, the source capacity calculations that we've done are an attempt to be as accurate as we can with the actual source capacity. We don't have, of course, a crystal ball of what will happen with the aquifers and so on going forward, but attention was given to that to try to characterize those source capacities as accurately as possible.
And there was another consultant that was evaluating the different sources and alternatives for resolving this source issue. And that's where they landed on the ASR program that's hopefully will help resolve this. So.
Yeah, let me jump in here just a little bit. Councilmember Sunwalt, to answer your question. So basically, looking at the numbers on average, we're looking okay out to 2040, but what we don't have, like Zach said, is a crystal ball to note exceptional periods of, say, drought, or maybe we might run into some other issues along the way which create a problem for the water system. We have done what recently was called a risk and resiliency analysis, which I'll bring to you guys later to kind of talk about what our major risks are and what we're trying to do right now to address those. But that's not something that we really want to address in open council. So we'll talk about that later. But I guess to answer your question is, we are working on making sure that we ensure water resiliency out into the future.
Councilmember Sunwall, did you have another question or did you leave your hand up?
No, that's it. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to zip through the CIP here to make sure we have enough time to touch on some of the sewer slides. Short-term CIP, as discussed for the water system, will be source of supply improvements, additional storage construction, some water main improvements, and treatment and backup generator added, treatment improvements and a backup generator added at the south well field to improve redundancy and reliability there. Longer term CIP projects over the next approximately beyond 5 years, that some of that other additional storage capacity that we talked about, and additional source improvements, additional backup generators for a couple of the wells at the north well field, and an additional pressure reducing valve on the Snoqualmie Ridge. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kenny here to run through the general sewer plan major components.
I'm Kenny Gomez.
Sorry.
Or Kenny, before you, I wanted to ask Jeff, were these costs and these needed improvements, particularly were storage, factored into the utility rate increases that the council approved?
Yes, they were.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
So we would have the means to do this.
Right. That's correct. Yeah, it's planned for, and it's in the CIP, actually.
Great, thank you.
All right, and Kenny, also, can you hit the accelerator a little bit? We got about 10 minutes.
That's what I was going to say. I'm going to hit the accelerator real hard. So if you guys need me to slow down for anything, let me know. I'm Kenny Gomez, project engineer for RH2, and I worked on the city's general sewer plan. It's got same major components as the water system plan for the most part, but we estimated projected flows and loadings for the wastewater system instead, and evaluate the collection system and wastewater plant for capacity there and identified improvements related to that. Next slide. Just a general overview of the city sewer system. It serves about 13,400 people. The majority of them are in the city limits. Some of the people, like Michelle indicated, are on septic systems, and there are some customers outside the city limits as well. There's a few, as well as the Snoqualmie Casino. The planning area is equal to the UGA, which is about 9 square miles. And then due to the topography of the city, there's about 17 lift stations that help provide sewer service to the city's residents. About 47 miles of gravity main and 10 miles of force main before everything comes down to the city's water reclamation facility, where then it's treated. Zach, if you want to go to the next slide. It's just a figure showing the city's sewer system. And if you click next, just wanted to show you the flow path from the Snoqualmie Casino as well. It goes down the hill through Pump Station 1, and then it goes through Kimbo Creek, and then over to the city's water reclamation facility where it's treated. Next slide, and this is just a schematic of your collection system showing where all the pump stations pump to. Everything in the historic Snoqualmie area flows through gravity or is pumped and then flows by gravity over to Pump Station 1. And then that's pumped over to Kimbo Creek Pump Station, where all the flow from Snoqualmie Ridge converges as well, and then is pumped over across the river to the water reclamation facility. Next slide. And then this slide here just shows a capacity evaluation that we did for each of the city's lift stations, sewer lift stations over the 20-year planning period. Next, Zach. We just want to highlight that there were a couple lift stations that we had identified for capacity improvements. Pump Station 1, which has been designed already and has already been bid once, and it sounds like a rebid is in progress on that. And then the Pump Station BP as well up in the business park has been identified for future improvements as well. And that'll be developer driven, and it'll depend on when development occurs up there and how they decide to convey the wastewater through the system at that time. Next slide. These are just some highlights of the short-term CIP projects for the city sewer system. Pump station number 2 had a replacement of a pump and force main replacement that's already been completed. Pump station 1 improvements, which includes replacing existing force main, has already been designed. And then there's also a couple others. The mill site pump station would be needed to serve future development on the mill site, just southeast of the water reclamation facility. And then there's also an improvement for the Kimbo Creek pump station to help equalize flows coming from the pump station to the wastewater treatment plant. Next slide. And this slide here just highlights the improvements that were identified in the city's sewer CIP. Next slide. And these are just the longer term system CIP projects that were identified in the general sewer plan. There were some pump replacement and electrical component replacement projects that were identified for the Kimbo Creek pump station that are farther out in the 10 to 20 year planning period. And there was also miscellaneous pump station improvements, adding flow meters, replacing valving, those types of things. The pump station BP capacity upgrades I have already mentioned, and then there's some miscellaneous pump station improvements that would be needed as well. That are developer driven and might be needed to serve development that occurs in areas of the city's UGA that are currently unserved. You want to go to in this here, it just shows some of those areas. Snoqualmie Hills East and West will probably both need a pump station to serve those areas, in particular, along with the mill site, which was already discussed. Next slide. Next, we're going to highlight the city's water reclamation facility, where all the city's wastewater comes and gets treated and then gets discharged. It comes into the headworks where they do some primary treatment, and then it goes to the oxidation ditches, where biological treatment takes place, and then it goes out through the secondary clarifiers, and then depending on if reclaimed water is being produced, it'll go through the reclaimed water filters, and then after that it goes out to the UV disinfection system, and then if reclaimed water is being produced, it'll get pumped up to Eagle Lake, where it then goes out and is used for irrigation at the golf course, and if it's not being used for reclaimed water, it'll be discharged to the Snoqualmie River. Some of the permit limits we just wanted to highlight on here for you are there's a maximum flow capacity of 2.15 million gallons per day for the wastewater plant, and then a loading component for biological oxygen demand and total suspended solids of 5,200 pounds per day approximately, and those are just components of wastewater strength. And then the reclaimed water production capacity is about 1.56 million gallons per day. And then this slide here just highlights the water reclamation facility. You can see the headworks top center, and then the oxidation ditches on right center. And then we'll go to the next slide. Go ahead and click next, Zach. This here is a historical flow and loading. Next again.
If some of the customers have not toured that facility yet, I'd really encourage you to do so. It's a pretty cool operation. Go ahead, Kenny. 4 minutes.
Okay. No, if you want to expand a little bit, you can, Matt.
We only have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to highlight the city did exceed its loading capacity for one component in 2016 and has been pretty close to being at capacity at least once a month of the year from 2015 to 2018. Next slide, Zach. Click next again. And just wanted to highlight one thing we had identified in the as part of the general sewer plan is around 2026, we anticipated the capacity of the WRF would be exceeded, and so improvements are recommended to continue to serve growth in the city and the city's UGA. Next slide. And then here's the CIP projects that were identified in the general sewer plan for the city's water reclamation facility. The first one is activated sludge basin improvements to increase the flow and loading capacity for the wastewater plant, along with some improvements to other components of the WRF. There's aging components in the secondary clarifier, a grit removal system, and the reclaimed water filters that'll need to be replaced. And that's what those three are. And then further out, there'll probably be a third secondary clarifier that'll be needed, and that's been identified on here as well.
Great. Well, first, Kenny, I have interest, I'm sure the council members would as well, if you could please send out or distribute this presentation or PowerPoint presentation to the council members and mayor afterwards. That would be appreciated. We have about 2 minutes. Councilmember Shepherd.
Yeah, I was wondering if we could get some documentation on some of the assumptions as far as what our needs are for water.
I trust that's in the 900-page document you wrote.
That's correct, Mayor. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's those assumptions are documented pretty well in the document.
Councilor Mayhew.
Yeah, I'll just quickly say, fellow council members, what we're trying to do here is use our committee system to try and reduce the load on our staff and on contractors. So the idea is they brought this all to us collectively first, hasn't gone through committee yet. The idea is now, please, let's all get our questions to our Public Works Committee. That's what they're there for, to do that lifting on our behalf. One of the things they're there for. So let's use them so that answers to questions we have, they can deep dive for us, they can get the answers. And instead of this sort of cycling on and on, we can kind of get this through in a smarter way. Let's try it out. That's my appeal to you.
All right, thank you. I don't see other hands up, so with that, we'll probably need every minute we can. Again, I assume the council members all have their original links that were in their calendars or sent prior for the council meeting. This was a Public Works link. So we're going to have to log off of here and log back onto there. And Kevin, go ahead.
I just wanted to let all the council members, mayor, city administrator, city attorney you have fresh links in your mailbox sent about 10 minutes ago for the next meeting.
Perfect. Very helpful. Thank you, Kevin. All right, with that, we'll re-adjourn the council meeting with the fresh link just sent at 7 p.m. If you can do it quickly, you get a few minutes break as well. All right. Thank you all.
I'm
No further business, so adjourn the meeting.